do you guys think? Do you think we could send special forces and just wipe out the cartels? Some, we have some no's, we have some yeses. What are your no's? What are the no's? You saying not easily? I think that's a fair statement. You think there's a cultural deficit? Not without casualties, but yes. Maybe some. Is anything that simple? That's a good statement. Is anything that simple?
Why would you? You could just build a wall and have good border security.
There you go.
Like,
What did you say?
That is the least efficient way to tackle the fentanyl problem. The easiest way is to build a wall, beef up border security. I don't know, throw the National Guard down there and stop it from coming over.
There you go. That's a very
But Dave, to answer your question, yes.
It'd be done in a week.
We could fucking annihilate them if they use the proper forces to go do it. Yep, absolutely. Now, would it go away? I'm not saying it would go away. Would we put a fucking huge impact in it? Absolutely. Yep.
That's kind of what I figured. Bob, what do you think?
If the title is Delta Force to destroy the cartels, does that mean these guys are prior Delta? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you give us the green light to go. Just our intel guys doing what we did overseas, and you know, you take the leash off. I mean, it'd probably be a week or 2 weeks. I mean, they got their.
You're saying David isn't? Yeah, he seems like a civilian interviewing, but these guys, are these guys prior? I hope they tell us.
They got their intel guys too, but who have they been dealing with the last fucking 40, 50 years, 60 years? Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
they have Mexican cops.
They see the men with green eyes land, they're gonna shit themselves, just like anybody else.
So I agree that we could take them out. I don't think it'd be 1 or 2 weeks because they got this thing called the jungle, and that shit's difficult. But I actually, like, as a thought experiment, I mean, I never really thought about it, but I feel like that might actually be a more difficult fight than Iraq and Afghanistan. Not in the overall, like, us being able to defeat them, but just like on the individual engagement level, because they will be better trained, better equipped, right? They will have intelligence services. They will be probably more organized. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I don't think they'd be more organized. They run off the base of fear. Most of them are fucking idiots. I mean, when it comes down to actually fighting for real, they know shit.
Yeah, but same thing for Al Qaeda. So.
Right.
Well, I don't know if any of you've seen the movie Sicario, but Sicario, as far as I know, is the only movie. And if any of you know, correct me if I'm wrong, the only movie that involved drug cartels, and then they had Delta Force in that film too, smoking some of those guys throughout. Great movie if you've never seen it.
But they had the FBI liaison, so it was all legit.
Yeah, is that a real thing or is that bullshit? Is that a Hollywood fiction?
No, there's got to be some more paperwork than just that for a military unit to be doing any sort of that shit.
Well, let me ask you. So as you can see from the video clip we just played of 3 Delta Force operators, they believe it is very possible that Delta Force could go in and smack around the drug cartels, take out targets, although it would come at some level of risk. It would come with some level of, I would say combat that you really haven't seen.
Okay, I have a question for you guys. I mean this from the best place in my heart. Okay, honest question. I don't know. I was only a medic. I don't know anything. If you were like, as someone who was medic, I met people with, different types of clearances, some very high, some like mine. And I never really saw them like talking about stuff. if you're a prior Delta person, are you allowed when you get out, do you guys think, to say that you were in Delta? Do you think that's like, do you guys think that's a okay or not? Because I've seen people go on Sean Ryan and stuff, and obviously, like, you know, we've watched some videos where they say, you know, they were former Delta or, you know, this and that. You guys are saying no. I would just feel like, you know, to be such a high American hero, to be such an amazing world hero and leader in, you know, tactic, you know, military stuff, I feel like I wouldn't ever, because you have to be the like the silent professional, right? I think that's kind of like the thing is certain special things, you're a silent professional. I would just worry that, you know, people would know your face and know what unit you were in. I just think that's crazy. But I don't know. I have no idea. Like, I would never, as a medic, obviously go and ever tell anybody, you know, any patient I've ever worked with, anything like that. Obviously, it's not even close. But if I'm comparing it to the only thing that I know, which is, you know, HIPAA, and this is the government HIPAA of secret stuff, I wouldn't know.
Is one of the operators pointed out, a lot of this would have to be jungle combat, which is not something the United States has dealt with since the Vietnam War, which was obviously a very, very long time ago.
Not to say
it's
anything.
Now 2024.
They shouldn't do it.
Things are not like they were during the Vietnam War, but make no mistake about it. Delta Force is every bit as prepared and ready to fight the enemy wherever, at any time, at a place of our choosing. If the enemy's dumb enough to show up, Delta Force will take care of the rest. So what?
I wouldn't want that for Delta. I wouldn't want that at all. I don't want them to go fight in something stupid and domestic like that. Those guys have been through so much, and I feel like once they're home, they should be home. I hope for those guys, even if they can't talk about stuff afterwards or they can't say they're in certain units, you know, I hope to God that like Uncle Sam has programs for these guys afterwards after they get out. But I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. Those guys have already done so much incredible stuff that we probably can't even understand. I wouldn't want them to go do that, especially if they're in the States. Just let them be home with their families, you know?
What exactly might Delta Force fighting the drug cartels south of the border to stem and or stop the flow of drugs, illegal drugs, in the United States look like?
They're not aquatic warriors.
After talking to a couple people, what we're seeing now in the show Lioness, even though it's very dramatic, it's over the top, it's not entirely realistic, is kind of what you could expect. So I spoke to some people that are much smarter than me, obviously are from that world. I am not. I was never in the military, certainly was never in Delta Force, but I spoke to some people who were in that world and still are adjacent to that world, work in that world. And essentially the argument they made, kind of like you see in the clip we just played, is that our technology and our
You're saying Delta has aquatic capabilities. I think they have aquatic, space, land, air, fourth dimension, whatever they want. I feel like, yeah, that's just, I mean, they're the coolest guys in the world. You better take good care of them.
Our ability to reach out and touch people wherever we want is so good. There's nothing the drug cartels could do to stop us. So let's scheme up for a second. What would it look like if Delta Force was to conduct a hit south of the border on a drug cartel? I think what you would likely see, and again, this is speculation because it's not something that is currently underway. It's not something that has been done at large scale, although there are reports we can say of Delta operating south of the border in Mexico, and I'll leave that at that. You can find that information on Google if you search long and hard enough. What I think would happen is you would likely see small teams, 6 to 18 operators, maybe as many as 24 operators, going into targets where high-level cartel leaders work, middle of the night, night vision, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. They would come in hot and heavy. They'd hit the target fast, get in, get out. And these would be capture-kill missions, just like we saw when they were battling al-Qaeda, just like we saw when they were battling the insurgency, just like we saw in Afghanistan against the Taliban, just like we saw in Syria, just like we've seen time and time and time again. And the goal of these operations is to cut the head off the snake. One of the criticisms of this plan is that you can't really defeat a drug cartel because so many people on the lower levels are essentially street criminals. And there's some truth to that. In fact, there's a lot of truth to that. But the reality of the situation, is this. If you cut the head off the snake, if you can go get the head of every drug cartel, if you can get their top 5 or 6 guys beneath them in the chain of command, number one, you're going to crush their ability to communicate, coordinate logistics, crush their ability to make battle plans. And that's what I think you would see happen. You would see targeted killings of the leaders of drug cartels, not just the head, but you'd see it down the command structure, 3, 4, 5 degrees removed from the head. And don't think for 1 second that the U.S. does not know where those people are at any given time. We absolutely do. And if the United States decides that the best option is to fly in the middle of the night, you could have Apaches supporting them. You could have helicopter gunships. You could have AC-130 gunships. I mean, they would lay waste to anybody stupid enough to try and come and...
Okay, I get it. I get Delta's like all powerful. I get that. But for something to be so close to home, I don't know. I feel like we shouldn't use this, our super special unit that has like saved the world and saved America and has wives and kids at home and, you know, geez, I feel like we have so much more military that can maybe do that. I don't know. I don't think it should all be on this group of people. I don't know. I think these guys probably have a hard enough time. I can't imagine being, I don't even know what you call it. I'm going to use the word breacher. A boots on the ground, you know, killing individual in a unit. And then like they probably have so many battles. Because what do you do after that? What do you do when you go into the civilian world? What do you do? You can't talk about it. You can't say anything. You know, I feel like, I don't know. Like, I get that they're cool and stuff. And, you know, we always want to say, like, oh, Delta, 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 Delta. You know, it's such a little hot name. But, I don't know. I would want them to be home for their families and to be taken care of afterwards. Uncle Sam better be taking good care of these guys when they get out. They better have a list. They better make sure they don't get lost wandering around the world. We better take care of these guys.
And stop them. And let's
not
be honest,
throw them into
this
something
before.
ridiculous like
We
this.
can look at the raid that killed Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, and it's not that much different. He was in a compound, heavily defended, heavily fortified. He had a QRF team.
You're saying that's what they're paid to, that's what they signed up for, knowing that they could do stuff like that. I agree. I understand that. You know, I'm prior service as well. You know, you do to a certain extent. But if you are, you know, it's not like you're a medic that sits in an office all day and then once a year goes get deployed. And when I get deployed, it's probably at some, you know, little clinic or whatever, maybe in Africa or Middle East or whatever. You know, these guys are going and killing high risk to life themselves all the time. I feel like just they shouldn't be, you know, thrown out like a cookie. You know what I'm saying? Just because they're like a really good cookie. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Because their percentage of risk is much higher than someone who just has to deploy in the big military. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Not that far down the road. Delta rolls up.
I feel like don't
waste
abuse
to the
them,
bad
I
guys.
guess,
The
is my thing.
QRF shows up. A helicopter sends them into the afterlife. Probably not to the good spot in the afterlife, if you know what I mean. And then the Baghdadi runs off and eventually unalives himself from this earth. And not overly dissimilar from the bin Laden raid, although you could expect your average cartel high-ranking official to have significantly more security than Osama bin Laden did in Pakistan. So I think that's kind of what you would see. You would see strike teams that would stage along the southern border, maybe even off aircraft carriers or naval ships if they thought the drug cartel leaders were on the coast and they could get to them that way. They'd come in fast. They'd come in the middle of the night. You could have as many as 24 operators on the ground. They would be supported by Task Force Orange, the CIA,
High
Special
risk, high
Activities
reward.
Division,
I understand.
the broader military in general, probably the FBI, certainly the DEA. All of those tools in the toolbox would come together, be picked out for their specific role, and they would build a mission set that Delta could execute. And let's not forget, this is what Delta's bread and butter is. Delta's best job is to go out on direct action or hostage rescue missions and shake stuff up, knock stuff around, take chess pieces off the chessboard. And I'm sure, you know, there's probably some cartel people who would say, well, we've got good enough security. We've got enough guys. Maybe you do have really good security. Maybe you do have enough guys. But when an Apache comes in and softens up the target seconds before 3 helicopters hit the ground and the best shooters on the planet disembark with night vision, the best night vision technology the world has ever seen, technology most of the world doesn't even know exists yet, is my understanding for what they're currently using. When they get off the helicopters and they're rocking that and all you see is men with green eyes coming at you, those cartel members are going to be dead before they even know what hit them, and they're going to take out the leaders. They're going to.
Some of you are saying that if that cartel is taken out, you think another one would swoop in. I don't know about that.
Take out the command structure, and then the organization could, in theory, implode upon itself.
Other ones.
So if I had to guess, that's what I think would happen. I think that it's probably a coin flip whether Donald Trump actually does that as president. I think he will first try to apply extreme pressure on the Mexican government, and if and when that does fail, then I think you could see him pivot to a military option using Delta Force and the special operations community.
Are we just talking about taking out the cartel because of the fentanyl? Is that the only reason? Is that like we have a fentanyl problem, so we're doing that? Is that why? There might be a little, bottom line up front, but it's more than just fentanyl. Okay. Human trafficking, trade, drugs. Okay. I don't know if you guys know this, but I was in my most recent emergency medical technician when I was recertifying. I can't find too much about it on the internet, actually, which is quite interesting. But there's something that we were taught about, that fentanyl, there's certain types of it that are a lot more potent. And as you guys know, fentanyl is transdermal, meaning if you touch it, it goes into your body. This specific kind. So I don't know if it's all of it. It's been a while since I had to think about fentanyl or give a medical brief on it, but yeah. Thank you, Superflat. Thank you.
Team 6 in the mix. I'm sure they'd want to be in there. You could use the Ranger Recon unit. You'd have CIA Recon out there. You would have every tool we could to stop the flow of drugs and stop the deaths of civilians here in America. That's my theory. I don't know.
Okay. I can see that.